In the year 2347, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in history, humanity made contact with an alien species. It all began on a bright morning when a massive spacecraft descended from the sky. The ship was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It shimmered with a metallic blue glow and hovered silently above Earth's capital city. People stopped what they were doing to stare at the enormous vessel. Some cheered, others prayed, and a few panicked. No one knew what to expect. The United Earth Coalition quickly took charge of the situation. They gathered a team of experts to communicate with the visitors. Among them was Daniel Carter, a linguist who had spent years studying ancient languages and decoding complex communication systems. He wasn't sure how his skills would help with aliens, but he was ready to try. Another key member of the team was Rachel Monroe, a calm and thoughtful diplomat known for her ability to resolve conflicts. Together, they stood at the forefront of humanity's first meeting with extraterrestrial life. After a tense hour of waiting, a door on the underside of the ship opened. A tall, crystalline figure stepped out. Its body sparkled as if made of glass, and it moved with slow, deliberate steps. The being introduced itself through a strange device that translated its words into human speech. "I am Valeth, representative of the Intergalactic Council," it said in a voice that sounded both mechanical and musical. Rachel stepped forward, trying to hide her nerves. "Welcome to Earth," she said, choosing her words carefully. "We are honored by your visit." Valeth tilted its head slightly, as if studying her. "Your species has reached a level of development that warrants attention," it replied. "The Intergalactic Council governs relations among the stars. We are here to evaluate whether you are ready to join our alliance." Daniel listened closely, his mind racing. The idea of joining an interstellar community was thrilling, but there was something unsettling about Valeth's tone. The alien didn't seem hostile, but it didn't seem friendly either. Instead, it carried an air of detached curiosity, like a scientist observing an experiment. As the conversation continued, more details emerged. The Council wanted to test humanity in several areas, including technology, culture, and behavior during conflicts. One phrase caught Daniel's attention: surrender protocol. He frowned, unsure what it meant. Humans had fought wars throughout their history, but the concept of surrender had always been messy and inconsistent. There was no universal rule or system for giving up in a fight. Could this be a problem? Rachel noticed Daniel's concern and gave him a quick glance. She shared his unease but kept her composure. "We look forward to proving ourselves worthy," she told Valeth, her voice steady. Valeth nodded slowly. "Your evaluation begins tomorrow. Prepare yourselves." With that, the crystalline figure turned and walked back into the ship. The massive vessel rose into the sky, leaving behind a trail of glowing light. As the crowd dispersed, Daniel and Rachel exchanged worried looks. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Daniel asked quietly. Rachel sighed. "I don't know, but we have no choice. This could be the most important moment in human history." Little did they know, the challenges ahead would test not just their intelligence and technology, but the very essence of what it meant to be human. The next morning, the United Earth Coalition prepared for the first round of evaluations. Daniel Carter and Rachel Monroe joined a group of scientists, military leaders, and diplomats in a large conference room. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew how important this day would be. If humanity failed, it could mean disaster. Success, on the other hand, might open doors to unimaginable opportunities. Valeth appeared again, this time using a holographic projection instead of arriving in person. Its glowing form hovered above the table, casting faint blue light across the room. Without wasting time, it began explaining the tests. "Your species will undergo several challenges," Valeth said. "These will measure your ability to coexist with other civilizations. One critical area is your understanding of surrender protocols." Rachel raised her hand slightly, unsure if interrupting was allowed. "Excuse me, but what exactly is a surrender protocol?" she asked. Valeth paused, as if surprised by the question. A surrender protocol ensures that conflicts end without unnecessary destruction. When one side offers terms of surrender, the other must accept or negotiate. This prevents extinction and promotes peace. Daniel leaned forward, his brow furrowed. But humans don't have a system like that. Our wars usually end when one side wins completely or both sides are too exhausted to continue. Valeth's crystalline face remained expressionless. That is concerning. A lack of surrender protocols indicates instability. We will observe how you handle simulated conflict scenarios. The first test began shortly after. The Council created a virtual battlefield where humans faced off against an alien species called the Zenari. General Marcus Hale, a stern man with decades of military experience, led the human team. At first, everything seemed normal. The humans advanced strategically, just as they would in any war game. But then, something unexpected happened. The Zenari sent a message offering surrender. They proposed terms, withdraw from their territory, and they would cease hostilities. The human commanders froze, unsure how to respond. Accepting surrender wasn't part of their training. Some argued that taking the deal might make them look weak. Others worried that refusing could escalate the situation. Rachel watched anxiously from the sidelines. She tried to intervene, suggesting they accept the offer to avoid further bloodshed. But General Hale hesitated. "If we give in now, they'll think we're soft," he muttered. "We need to show strength." Time ticked away as the humans debated. Meanwhile, the Zenari grew impatient. When no decision came, they resumed attacking, forcing the humans into a chaotic retreat. By the time the simulation ended, the human team had suffered heavy losses. Valeth's voice echoed through the room. "This outcome reflects poorly on your species. Your inability to accept surrender resulted in unnecessary destruction." Rachel felt a lump in her throat. She glanced at Daniel, who looked equally troubled. "We didn't know what to do," she said softly. "Humans aren't used to these kinds of rules." Valeth tilted its head. "Then perhaps you must learn. Failure to adapt may disqualify you from joining the Council." Back at the Coalition headquarters, the team gathered to discuss what went wrong. Arguments broke out almost immediately. Some blamed General Hale for being too stubborn. Others criticized the Council for expecting humans to follow rules they'd never heard of before. Emily Dawson, a young astrophysicist who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "Maybe the problem isn't just about surrender," she said. "It's about trust. We don't know the Council's intentions, and they don't understand us. If we want to succeed, we need to figure out why they're testing us so harshly." Her words gave everyone pause. Daniel nodded slowly. "She's right. There's more going on here than meets the eye. We can't just focus on passing the tests. We need to understand the Council's motives." As the sun set over the city, the weight of the challenge ahead settled heavily on the team. Humanity's future depended on their ability to adapt, and fast. But deep down, they all wondered, could humans really change who they were to fit into a galaxy that seemed so different? The next day, the team gathered again, this time with a sense of urgency. The failure in the first test had shaken everyone, and they knew they couldn't afford another mistake. Rachel Monroe called a quick meeting before the second evaluation began. "We need to figure out how to handle surrender," she said firmly. "If we don't, we risk losing everything." Daniel Carter nodded, his mind still replaying the chaos of the previous simulation. He glanced at Emily Dawson, who had been quiet but observant. "Emily's right," he said. "We can't just focus on the tests. We need to understand why the Council is doing this. Maybe there's more to these protocols than they're telling us." Before anyone could respond, Valeth's hologram appeared once more. "Prepare yourselves," it said. "The next trial will begin shortly." Without further explanation, the projection vanished, leaving the room silent. This time, the test was different. Instead of a battlefield, the humans were placed in a virtual negotiation room. Across the table sat representatives of another alien species, the Krill. They looked insect-like, with shiny exoskeletons and multiple eyes that seemed to watch every move. The krill spoke through a translator device, their voices sharp and clipped. "We seek peace," they said, "but only under certain conditions." Rachel stepped forward, determined to take charge. She introduced herself and listened carefully as the krill outlined their demands. They wanted access to Earth's resources in exchange for advanced technology. It was a tempting offer, but Rachel hesitated. She glanced at Daniel, silently asking for advice. Daniel leaned closer. "Ask them what happens if we refuse," he whispered. Rachel nodded and posed the question. The krill's response was immediate. "Refusal means conflict," they said coldly. "But we are willing to negotiate terms of surrender if you cannot meet our demands." The word surrender sent a ripple of unease through the human team. General Marcus Hale stepped forward, his face hard. "We don't surrender," he growled. "We fight until the end." The krill tilted their heads, clearly confused. "That is illogical," they replied. "Why destroy yourselves when compromise is possible?" Rachel felt her heart race. She knew the humans were at a disadvantage. Their instincts told them to resist, to fight back, but that approach wasn't working. Taking a deep breath, she turned to the krill. "We need time to consider your offer," she said calmly. The krill agreed, giving the humans a short break to discuss. Back in their private chamber, arguments erupted almost immediately. General Hale insisted they reject the offer outright, while others argued for finding a middle ground. "If we don't accept some form of surrender, we'll fail again," Emily said, her voice firm. "This isn't about pride. It's about survival." Rachel nodded slowly. "She's right. We can't keep making the same mistakes. If we want to pass, we have to adapt." When they returned to the negotiation table, Rachel spoke clearly. "We agree to your terms, but with modifications," she said. "We'll share limited resources, and in return, you'll provide technology gradually." The krill studied her for a moment before nodding. "Acceptable," they said. The simulation ended, and for the first time, the humans felt a glimmer of hope. Valeth appeared once more. "You have shown progress," it said. "But true understanding requires more than temporary solutions. Remember this as you proceed." Back at headquarters, the team celebrated their small victory, but the mood remained cautious. Emily looked at Daniel and Rachel. "We're learning," she said, "but I think the hardest tests are still ahead." They all knew she was right. The Council's challenges were far from over, and humanity's ability to adapt would be tested again. And soon. News of the second test outcomes spread quickly, and while there was some relief, it did little to ease the growing tension on Earth. People were divided. Some believed humanity should embrace the Council's rules, even if it meant changing deeply ingrained behaviors. Others argued that bending to alien demands would strip away what made humans unique. The debate raged in news broadcasts, government meetings, and private conversations. Senator Gregory Hayes became one of the loudest voices against compromise. A tall man with a booming voice, he stood before crowds and declared, "We didn't survive wars, famine, and disease just to bow down to strangers from the stars. Surrender protocols. That's not who we are." His words resonated with many, especially those who feared losing their independence. Rachel Monroe and her team faced mounting pressure. They were caught between the Council's expectations and humanity's resistance. Daniel Carter spent long nights researching surrender practices throughout history, hoping to find a way to bridge the gap. He worked closely with Emily Dawson, whose sharp mind often uncovered insights others missed. Together, they realized that humanity's struggle wasn't just about pride. It was about fear. Fear of appearing weak, fear of being controlled, and fear of losing identity. Their breakthrough came when they consulted Dr. Laura Bennett, a historian specializing in conflict resolution. She was a calm woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. Sitting in her cluttered office, she listened as Daniel and Emily explained the situation. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Humans have always been fighters," she said slowly. "For most of our history, survival depended on never backing down. But now, you're dealing with a galaxy where cooperation matters more than conquest. The question is, can you learn to see surrender not as weakness, but as strength?" Her words stuck with them. That night, Rachel called an emergency meeting with her team. "Dr. Bennett is right," she said. "If we want to pass these tests, we need to change how we think about surrender. It's not giving up, it's choosing peace over destruction." General Marcus Hale, however, wasn't convinced. He slammed his fist on the table during the meeting. "Peace doesn't win wars," he snapped. "Strength does. If we start rolling over every time someone demands something, we'll lose everything." Rachel met his glare with steady determination. "This isn't about rolling over, General. It's about finding a new way to survive. If we don't adapt, the Council will leave us behind, or worse." The argument went on for hours, but eventually, a fragile agreement emerged. The team decided to focus on teaching key negotiators how to recognize when surrender was the better option. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a start. As the days passed, tensions on Earth grew. Protests erupted in major cities, with people holding signs that read "No to alien rules" or "Stand strong, stay human." Senator Hayes used the unrest to push harder against the Council's demands. He even proposed cutting ties with the delegation entirely. But Rachel refused to give up. She held press conferences, speaking directly to the public. "We're standing at a crossroads," she told the cameras. "Yes, adapting will be hard. But isolation could mean the end of progress for our species. We have a chance to join something bigger than ourselves, to learn, to grow, and to thrive. Isn't that worth trying for?" Her words reached some, but not all. Back at headquarters, Daniel and Emily worked tirelessly, preparing for the next test. They knew the challenges ahead would only get harder. The Council wasn't just testing humanity's ability to follow rules. They were testing its willingness to evolve. Late one night, as they pored over notes, Emily looked at Daniel and smiled faintly. "Do you think we can do this?" she asked. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "We have to. Humanity's future depends on it." But deep down, both of them wondered, could humans really change fast enough to meet the Council's expectations? Or would their instincts lead them down a path of no return? The final trial was unlike anything the humans had faced before. It took place aboard the Council's massive flagship, a vessel so vast it made Earth's largest cities look small. The team, Daniel Carter, Rachel Monroe, Emily Dawson, and a few others, was escorted to a chamber filled with glowing screens and strange machinery. Valeth stood at the center, its crystalline form shimmering under the dim light. "This is your last evaluation," Valeth announced. "You will face a simulated conflict with another species. Your decisions will determine whether humanity qualifies for membership in the Intergalactic Council." Rachel swallowed hard but nodded. "We're ready," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. The simulation began immediately. One moment, they were in the chamber. The next, they found themselves on a virtual battlefield. The alien species they faced was called the Vorith, tall beings with scaly skin and piercing red eyes. The scene was chaotic. Explosions lit up the horizon, and the air buzzed with the sound of weapons firing. General Marcus Hale led the human forces, barking orders as they tried to hold their ground. At first, the humans fought fiercely, just as they always had. But then, something unexpected happened. The Vorith sent a message. "We offer terms of surrender. Cease your attacks, and we will withdraw from your territory." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to Rachel, waiting for her decision. She hesitated, her mind racing. Accepting surrender felt unnatural, almost wrong. Yet refusing could mean disaster. She glanced at Daniel, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. "We accept your terms," Rachel said finally, her voice clear and firm. General Hale stepped forward, his face red with anger. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "They're testing us. If we give in now, they'll think we're weak." Rachel faced him, her expression calm but resolute. "No, General. They're testing whether we can choose peace over destruction. This isn't about weakness, it's about survival." The simulation shifted, the Voreth withdrew, and the battlefield grew quiet. For the first time, the humans saw a way out without bloodshed. But the trial wasn't over yet. Another challenge appeared. A second alien force emerged, this one even more aggressive. Once again, they offered surrender, but with stricter conditions. This time, the humans had to give up part of their resources. Debate erupted among the team. Some argued that giving in would set a dangerous precedent. Others, including Emily, insisted it was necessary. "We've come too far to fail now," she said. "If we refuse, we risk everything." In the end, Rachel made the call. "We agree to your terms," she told the aliens. Her voice wavered slightly, but she held her ground. When the simulation ended, Valith reappeared. Its tone was neutral, but there was a hint of approval. "You have demonstrated progress," it said. "Your actions show a willingness to adapt, though your instincts still resist." Back in the chamber, the team let out a collective sigh of relief. They had passed, at least for now, but Rachel knew the real challenge lay ahead. Adapting to the Council's rules wouldn't be easy, especially with people like Senator Hayes opposing them every step of the way. As they prepared to leave the ship, Daniel turned to Rachel. "Do you think we did enough?" he asked quietly. Rachel looked at him, her eyes tired but determined. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we did our best. That's all we can do." The Council's true intentions remained unclear, but one thing was certain. Humanity's journey into the stars would demand sacrifices and changes they hadn't imagined. As the team returned to Earth, they thought the hardest part was over. They had passed the Council's tests, and humanity had been granted provisional membership in the Intergalactic Council. But the celebrations were short-lived. The Council's terms came with strict conditions, rules that would change how humans lived, fought, and interacted with others. The first condition was mandatory training in surrender protocols. Every military unit, government official, and even civilians would need to learn when and how to accept surrender. The second condition was oversight. The Council would send envoys to monitor Earth's progress, ensuring compliance. For many, these demands felt like chains binding humanity's freedom. Senator Gregory Hayes wasted no time rallying opposition. He held rallies across the globe, his voice booming through speakers as he condemned the Council's interference. "They want to control us," he shouted at one event. "They want to strip away our strength, our independence, our identity. Are we really going to let them?" His words struck a chord with millions. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with people holding signs that read "No to Alien Control" and "Earth for Earthlings." Even some members of the United Earth Coalition began questioning whether joining the Council was worth it. Rachel Monroe faced immense pressure. She spent her days defending the decision to cooperate with the Council, appearing on news programs and addressing angry crowds. "This isn't about losing who we are," she told a skeptical audience during one televised debate. "It's about learning to survive in a galaxy where cooperation matters more than conquest. If we don't adapt, we'll be left behind, or worse." But not everyone was against the changes. Emily Dawson worked tirelessly to educate people about the benefits of surrender protocols. She traveled to schools, community centers, and military bases, explaining how accepting surrender could save lives and prevent unnecessary destruction. Her calm demeanor and clear explanations won over some skeptics, though many remained unconvinced. Daniel Carter focused on decoding the Council's motives. Late one night, while reviewing intercepted communications between the Council ships, he stumbled upon something alarming. Hidden within the data were encrypted messages hinting at ulterior motives. It seemed the Council wasn't just testing humanity. They were searching for weaknesses to exploit. If Earth failed to meet their expectations, the consequences could be dire. Daniel shared his findings with Rachel and Emily. "They're not doing this to help us," he said grimly. "They're using the tests to decide whether we're worth keeping around, or if we're too dangerous to exist." The revelation shook them. Rachel realized they were walking a fine line. Complying with the Council's demands might secure humanity's place in the galaxy, but it also meant sacrificing autonomy. Refusing to comply, however, could lead to isolation, or worse. Despite the growing resistance, Rachel pushed forward. She met with world leaders, urging them to implement the Council's rules. "We have no choice," she said during one tense meeting. "If we don't show them we can adapt, they'll see us as a threat. And if they see us as a threat..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the stakes. Slowly, grudgingly, nations began adopting the new protocols. Military commanders struggled to teach soldiers the concept of surrender, while diplomats learned to negotiate under stricter guidelines. It was a painful process, filled with setbacks and arguments, but progress was being made. One evening, as Rachel sat alone in her office, Daniel knocked on the door. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," she admitted. "Every day feels like a battle. Half the planet hates me, and the other half doesn't trust me." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing what you believe is best for humanity. That's all anyone can ask." Rachel nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. Humanity had taken its first step into the stars, but the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges they couldn't yet imagine. Months passed, and Earth began to adjust to its new reality under the watchful eyes of the Intergalactic Council. The envoys sent by the Council arrived in sleek ships that hovered above major cities, their presence a constant reminder of humanity's provisional status. At first, many people resented the oversight, but over time, some began to see the benefits. The Council shared advanced technology, helping solve problems like clean energy and food shortages. Slowly, trust started to grow, though it was fragile. Rachel Monroe continued to lead the effort, working tirelessly to bridge the gap between Earth and the Council. She met regularly with Vailith and other representatives, learning more about their ways and explaining humanity's struggles. It wasn't easy. Every step forward seemed to come with 2 steps back. Protests still erupted occasionally, and Senator Gregory Hayes remained a vocal critic, accusing Rachel of selling out humanity's future. Despite the challenges, there were moments of hope. Emily Dawson became a trusted figure in promoting surrender protocols, her calm explanations helping people understand that accepting surrender didn't mean weakness, it meant survival. Daniel Carter, meanwhile, kept digging into the Council's motives. Though he couldn't prove his suspicions about ulterior plans, he remained vigilant, watching for any sign of betrayal. One day, the Council called for a final meeting aboard their flagship. Rachel, Daniel, and Emily boarded the ship together, their nerves taut. They weren't sure what to expect. When they entered the chamber, Vailith stood waiting, its crystalline form glowing softly. "You have shown progress," Vailith began. "Your species has adapted to our rules, though not without difficulty. This demonstrates potential." Rachel felt a flicker of relief but stayed silent, waiting for the rest. However, Vailith continued, "Your instincts remain unpredictable. You are capable of great cooperation, yet your history shows a tendency toward conflict. For now, you will retain provisional membership, but know this: failure to uphold these standards may result in severe consequences." The words hung heavy in the air. Humanity had earned a place among the stars, but only barely. The Council's message was clear: adapt fully, or face exclusion, or worse. Back on Earth, the team gathered to discuss what had happened. Rachel looked around at the faces of her colleagues, exhaustion etched into each one. "We've taken the first step," she said quietly. "But the journey isn't over. We'll need to keep proving ourselves, to them, and to each other." Daniel nodded. "It's going to take time. maybe generations. But if we can learn to balance who we are with what they expect, we might just make it work. Emily smiled faintly. And maybe, along the way, we'll discover something new about ourselves. As the days turned into weeks, life on Earth began to settle into a rhythm. People learned to coexist with the council's envoys, and while tensions lingered, so did the sense of possibility. New schools taught children about interstellar diplomacy, and scientists worked alongside alien experts to tackle global challenges. But deep down, Rachel knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Humanity's instincts ran deep, and changing centuries of behavior wouldn't happen overnight. Still, she believed in the potential for growth. "We're writing a new chapter," she told Daniel one evening as they watched the stars from a quiet rooftop. "Even if it means changing who we are, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's how we survive and thrive." In the end, humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer guaranteed by strength or defiance, but by its willingness to adapt. The question remained, could humans truly embrace peace over pride?